Hello. So, people seem to just want more videos of me just kind of playing games, running my mouth off. So, today we're gonna do some GG Aleste II. And we're playing it on MSX. Yes, I am serious. So, if you're not really into MSX, you may not be aware of this little thing here, the PlaySoniq. This is one of the crazier MSX expansion devices you can buy. It actually has quite a few functions, but in this case, one of its main appeals is that it has the actual video display processor from a Sega Master System inside. You might be familiar that the MSX1 is actually very, very similar hardware to the SG-1000 and also the ColecoVision. With some differences like sound chips. The Sega Master System, though, actually does have a very, very different VDP, completely different. Though the CPUs are basically the same. And they also use the same FM chip as well. This being a Game Gear game, there is no FM, but so with the VDP in there, we can play Sega Master System games on MSX. And if you're not familiar, this is actually a fan patch. There are actually a bunch of fan patches to convert Game Gear only games into Sega Master System games. And since this hardware is almost exactly the same, with all this hooked together, it works. Of course, since it is a VDP chip, it needs its own video output, which this is a European SCART cable, which I don't have a direct use for, so I actually run it through a SCART to VGA adapter, which then goes up into my monitor. It also has composite video out, RCA out, and it even has audio input. If you look down there, you see that little orange RCA. That actually takes the MSX audio, inputs it into the PlaySoniq, and then it mixes it all together. In fact, if you take there's actually a volume adjuster inside the cartridge, which if you're going to use the input and the mixer, you generally turn that all the way off anyway. And the main reason for this is for the FM, because the FM chip is in the MSX, so if you're playing a Sega Master System game that supports FM, the FM uses the same chip, so it comes out the MSX, mixes them there with the Master System VDP, which also contains the Master System audio. It's a one-chip kind of deal, and spits it all out. And well, this may seem a bit odd at first. It's actually, for me, quite convenient. Sega Master System is a system I've never owned. As a kid, I literally didn't even know it existed. And by the time I had heard about it, it was just like, why would you want that when you could get a Genesis? Come on, camera, don't be stupid. Why are you not? No. There we go. Slightly zoom in. Okay. But anyway, Master System is a system I've always kind of wanted to get into, but just never had because it's kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. Yeah. Let's have some fun. Because, I mean, you might be, I think it's pretty common knowledge now, but the actual Master System in the West was really a Mark III in a Master System case, where the Japanese Master System had the FM built in, and a few other stuff. But the biggest issue with the Master System for me is, well, it has a very good library of games to get into. You really have to go international to really get the most out of it. Because there's lots of games that, even in its native land of Japan, were only released on Game Gear. And even like big name stuff, like, I mean, geez, Sonic 2, for example, was only released on Master System in Europe. And that's a game I actually had on Game Gear, on a super budget Game Gear I got for very cheap. Like, something like 10 years after the Game Gear came out. And so that's a game a lot of people probably don't... It's not one of the best... It's, you know, it's one of the weaker 8-bit Sonics, honestly, but I just have a lot of nostalgia for it. But it was only released in Europe in 50 Hertz parts of the world. And while you can force it to run on, for example, a 60 Hertz base Master System, it has lots of glitches because it was never designed to run at that speed. And another good example, of course, is Power Strike 2, which was only released in Europe and was specifically designed for 50 Hertz. Even when the Aleste Collection came out, the guy that made it actually flat out said, yes, this was specifically meant for 50 Hertz. And if you played at 60, it's too fast and more difficult than it's meant to be. So sure, you could get, like, you know, a Master System and some kind of EverDrive. But that's just another system I don't really need. So when I add up all the costs, it just made more sense for me to get the PlaySoniq and just enhance the capabilities of my MSX. The other big one too is the FM. Some of the FM soundtracks on Master System are really cool, really nice to listen to. And there's a lot of games that, like, I mean, even the really good example, for example, is Raston. The Master System port is really good. It's still a great game to play if it's your thing. I mean, it's kind of slow, clunky, and hard, but I quite enjoy it. And that is a game that does support FM. It has a really nicely done FM soundtrack, but was never actually sold in Japan. So, even if I was to go out and buy myself a Master System, I couldn't even buy Raston in this country because it doesn't exist. And if it, you know, you lived in like the US where it did come out, well, you don't have FM. So you have to run some kind of hacked up solution no matter what you do. Also, even if you, like, let's say a Japanese Master System which has FM built in, and you play a game that has FM, it will always use the FM. If you actually want to listen to just the DCSG, you can't actually disable that on a Japanese Master System. But with the PlaySoniq here, I can choose whether I want it enabled or not. It's just one of the options. You can say enable FM or disable FM. You can tell games if you want them to run in 50 Hz or 60 Hz, whatever you want, assuming your monitor supports it. Since I'm using an arcade monitor here, 50 Hz, 60 Hz, everything just works. Of course, this is a Game Gear game, which, yeah, there's a fan patch that makes this run on Master System, which is how I'm playing it here. As actual Game Gear games do not directly work on the PlaySoniq because Game Gear's a little different. Such as having actually more color palettes and also stereo. So, this patch here technically isn't 100% perfect example of how the game was meant to run. but I honestly don't care because being able to play this on the arcade monitor here and very bright, colorful RGB, this is just wonderful. PlaySoniq has other features too. Probably the other big major one is that it also contains a Commodore 64 SID sound chip inside. And no, you can't play Commodore 64 games on MSX, but what it's for is basically for just listening to music. It'll happily play PSID, PSID, however you want to say it, files. Which is another feature I quite like, because Commodore 64 is a system that I knew it existed, but I didn't know anyone that had one. I never had one. And while some of the games are actually pretty decent, I just don't need one. It just doesn't. It's not a system that I really want to own. But the sound chip in that thing, the SID, is just nothing sounds like the SID. Absolutely nothing. So, being able to put literally thousands upon thousands of PSID files on my MSX's SD card hard drive, and then just being able to blast them on the actual SID chip for this PlaySoniq is a very nice feature. Yeah. One of these days I'll cut around to actually doing a video on all the sound chips we've got on MSX now, because it's kind of ridiculous. Yay, bonus stage. Yeah. But yeah, there's actually quite a few Game Gear games that have patches for Master System. Though they're all done by different people, so the quality varies. Due to the resolution differences, some games you'll see stuff that you were never meant to see. There's nothing to do with the PlaySoniq, that just has to do the difference between the Master System and the Game Gear. But look, Game Gear Aleste II here is one of the better ones. Does an absolutely wonderful job here. First game also runs quite nicely as well, but there's some junk that's supposed to be off-screen that the patch author just didn't know how to get rid of, or just ran out of time. Now what needs to happen is we need to get an actual proper standalone release of Game Gear Aleste III, because I have kids, I do have a Switch, and one of the very few games I have for it myself is the Aleste Collection, and mainly just for Game Gear Aleste III, because that game is phenomenal. But if only I could get that. Only way I could purchase the ROM itself for that, so I could load that on here, because that would just be wonderful to play that. Oops, I actually got hit. was always an interesting series to me, because some of the games are really intense, really kick your ass. But then you've got, like, the first two Game Gear games, which are actually quite relaxing, really. At least on normal. You know, if you crank up the difficulty, they do get quite a bit more challenging, but... it's a Saturday night. My son is just... Switch Pokemon, Switch Pokemon. The wife is watching terrible Japanese TV. Daughter is doing who knows what. So, while I appreciate a good tense kick you in the ass shooter, every once in a while, it's nice to just kick back and play something like this. Actually funny too, because when I played this on the actual Switch collection, at full screen it just looks terrible. On the actual Switch screen it generally looks alright. That's generally how I play it on there, but gladly give up the stereo sound to play it on the arcade monitor here, because this is just lovely. This boss is dumb. Just kind of sit here and shoot at it. But normal is actually one of the easier difficulties. There's several more. But again, there's really not a whole lot to the point of this video. But that's okay. Especially because over here, well, Japan is generally pretty decent at stuff. They've been pretty crap at getting the COVID vaccines distributed, especially in my area. So, basically just go to work, come home, keep the kids busy until they get bored of me, and then play something. And yeah, the Metal Dragon that I played in the last video, absolutely love it. And it actually is fairly intense if you're going through you know, a no-death run. So, thought I'd put on good old Game Gear Aleste II here and just chill. Let out some speed. So you notice, like, I can kind of go off the screen here. That's just because the Master System has a higher resolution. But the guy that made this patch was actually quite well known for doing some interesting programming stuff. Did it in a way that, see, like if I go like that, you can kind of see stuff that's off screen. But he still did a really good job here compared to some of the other Game Gear ports from other people that have a lot more junky junk. So, for those who are interested in buying a PlaySoniq, they are not cheap. In fact, they're very, very expensive. But it depends what you have. As someone who's already an MSX owner and had literally absolutely nothing for the Master System at all, makes the cost not so fairly reasonable for me, because if I was to buy a Japanese Mega Drive and some kind of EverDrive device to actually put the games on, it would be around the same price, really, in today's prices. Plus, I'd have to use the crap Master System controllers. So this is running on MSX, I'm just using my MSX Super NES controller adapter and playing with a Super NES controller, which is quite lovely. And while I do have a soft spot for the Game Gear itself, since I do have one, well, back in the US actually. As I get older, my eyes just can't deal with those older blurry screens. I mean, just after a while, the eyes just kind of start screaming no, which is weird because you know what doesn't bother me? The Virtual Boy. I can play the Virtual Boy for well over an hour and feel absolutely no sense of eye strain or tiredness whatsoever, but Game Gear, even the old Game Boy, which I also have absolutely adore. My eyes are just getting too old for them. Yeah, well, that's the second bonus stage, so we're getting towards the end of the game. Don't stab me. And no, you don't need like a turbo R or anything too excessive to use a PlaySoniq. If you are interested in one, you will need some kind of hard drive device to put the actual ROMs and software on. It's basically you load up MSX DOS and then you use the loader software to start it up. Though, if you're the kind of person who's going to buy one of these, you probably already have something that'll work for the various flash cards, and MSX has more hardware options than it's kind of unbelievable at this point. And I definitely approve. But yeah, if you get the parts, on MSX now we can play MSX games, we can play Sega Master System games, Sega SG-1000 games, ColecoVision games. Some people don't consider V9990 games to be true MSX games, but I personally do, but some don't. but those also, of course, can be played. If you have all the parts. Alright, it's part of the game where I might actually have to use a bomb. Of course, like a lot of games in the series, it does suffer from the final boss curse. Oops. You actually hit me. And what I mean by that is once you get to the last boss, once you start getting killed, you tend to just get killed over and over again. And once you get to the point where you're too weak, so you basically go from never dying and then you lose all your lives in less than a minute. But that's just kind of a staple of the series. I think this is the last stage. Yeah, pretty sure it is. Use a bomb, because I want to die. Until I get my shield back. No, I don't want D, but this is about the point where I need to switch weapons, though. Ah, no. This isn't the best sub-weapon for the final boss. Okay, shield's back. Ride that invincibility. Oh, and yes, the PlaySoniq does also have the ability to... Ooh, yes, that's what I wanted. That does have the ability to create save files for the ROMs. Yeah, ours is much better for this fight. So yes, you can, for example, play like Phantasy Star on this thing. Ah, I was dumb. That's what I meant. That's where I just start screwing up. Ah. I don't think I'm supposed to be able to go over there. Wait, it actually... Crap. Not much weaker. Die. I don't want any pump. More power. So this final fight's fairly simple on normal. Just don't panic. Watch out for the swirling bullets. Yay! But yeah, I don't think anyone claimed this game to even be remotely difficult on normal. But simple fun. So I wasn't really even planning to play for the whole game, but if you're still watching, thanks. And that will be it. So, no idea what will be next, or when it'll be, but something will come at some point. See ya.